Dr. Zaxxon watched the human thrashing against its restraints, a sneer of disgust twisting his features. These primitive creatures were so fragile, so weak. It was almost pitiful. "Increase the pain stimuli," he ordered. "Let's see how much this one can take." His assistant, Virexia, tapped at her console. The human's screams intensified, echoing through the sterile laboratory. Zaxxon leaned closer, his multiple eyes narrowing as he studied the readouts flickering across the screen. "Fascinating," he murmured. "The subject's vital signs are spiking, but there's something else, a secondary system coming online." Virexia cocked her head. "What do you mean?" Zaxxon pointed to a pulsing strand of genetic code. "There, that sequence. It's activating in response to the stress." He turned back to the writhing human, a new glint of interest in his gaze. Perhaps there was more to these creatures than met the eye. Days turned into weeks as Zaxxon and his team delved deeper into the mysterious gene. They pushed their subjects to the brink, studying how the sequence responded to different stimuli. "We're calling it the Berserker Code," Zaxxon announced to his colleagues. "When activated, it sends the human into a hyper-focused combat state, increased strength, speed, pain tolerance. It's like nothing we've ever seen." Murmurs rippled through the gathered researchers. Virexia, standing by Zaxxon's side, spoke up. "If humans have this latent ability, why haven't we encountered it before?" Zaxxon waved a dismissive hand. "It seems to only activate under extreme duress. And even then it's rare. Most of our subjects expired long before triggering the gene." He turned to face his team, a fierce grin splitting his face. "But now that we know it exists, we can unlock its secrets. Imagine an army enhanced with the Berserker Code. We would be unstoppable." Sergeant Maxis lay strapped to the cold metal table, his mind adrift in a haze of pain. He'd lost track of how long he'd been here. Days, weeks, months. Time had no meaning in this place. The aliens had taken everything from him: his freedom, his dignity, his very humanity. They poked and prodded at him like a laboratory specimen, pushing him to the edge of sanity. But through it all, a single thought kept him going. One day he would make them pay. One day he would see their blood spilled across the stars. As another wave of agony ripped through his body, Maxis felt something stirring deep within him, a primal fury ancient and implacable. It was like a switch had been flipped in his brain, unleashing a flood of raw, savage power. His restraints shattered like glass. Alarms blared as he surged to his feet, his eyes dead and cold. The aliens scrambled back, shouting in their strange, chittering language. Maxis didn't hesitate. He leapt forward, seizing the nearest researcher by the throat. Bones crunched beneath his fingers as he squeezed, feeling the alien's lifeblood pulsing against his palm. More creatures swarmed into the room, wielding strange weapons that sizzled and hummed. Maxis welcomed them with a savage smile, his body moving faster than thought. He tore through them like a whirlwind, his hands and feet striking with brutal precision. Bones shattered, flesh tore, and hot alien blood splashed across the sterile white walls. Maxis reveled in the slaughter, losing himself in the pure, primal joy of combat. This was what he was meant for. This was his true purpose. As he rampaged through the station, he caught glimpses of other humans fighting alongside him, their eyes blazing with the same merciless fire. They moved like a pack of wolves, tearing into the aliens with ruthless efficiency. The station shuddered beneath the onslaught, its halls echoing with the screams of the dying. Maxis led the charge, an unstoppable avatar of human fury. In another part of the station, Private Ava Reeves felt the same primal fury surging through her veins. She'd been one of the lucky ones, tucked away in a holding cell, spared the worst of the aliens' experiments. But now, as alarms blared and the sounds of battle echoed through the corridors, she knew her time had come. With a snarl of rage, Ava threw herself against the door of her cell, once, twice, 3 times, and then it gave way, crumpling like tinfoil beneath her assault. She burst into the corridor beyond, her eyes wild and her fists clenched. A group of alien guards spun to face her, their weapons raised. Ava didn't give them a chance to fire. She lunged forward, moving with a speed and grace that defied belief. Her fist slammed into the first guard's throat, crushing his windpipe like paper. The others opened fire, their energy beams sizzling through the air. But Ava was already moving, twisting and dodging with preternatural agility. She flowed through them like a ghost, her hands and feet striking with devastating force. Aliens crumpled and died, their bodies pulverized by the sheer fury of her assault. When it was over, Ava stood alone amidst a heap of broken bodies, her chest heaving and her eyes blazing with savage triumph. Corporal Jax Briggs had always been a fighter. Even before the aliens took him, he'd been known as a scrapper, a man who never backed down from a challenge. But now, as he tore through the research station like a one-man army, he realized he'd never truly known what it meant to fight. The Berserker Code sang in his blood, filling him with a strength and speed he'd never imagined possible. His fists struck with the force of sledgehammers. His feet lashed out with the precision of a surgeon's blade. He moved through the station like a whirlwind, leaving a trail of destruction in his wake. Aliens fell before him like wheat before a scythe, their bodies broken and mangled. Jax reveled in the slaughter, a fierce grin splitting his face. This was what he was born for. This was his destiny. Zaxxon huddled beneath his desk, his heart pounding a desperate rhythm against his ribs. This couldn't be happening. They were the superior species, the ones in control. But outside his office, the screams of his colleagues told a different story. The human berserkers were tearing through the station like a plague, leaving only slaughter in their wake. A flicker of movement caught Zaxxon's eye. He risked a glance over his shoulder and found himself staring into the merciless gaze of a blood-drenched human. Sergeant Maxis loomed over him, his eyes burning with a cold, implacable rage. In that moment, Zaxxon saw the truth of what they had unleashed. This was no mere biological quirk, no scientific curiosity. This was retribution, pure and simple. The humans they had tormented for so long had become the instrument of their destruction. Zaxxon opened his mouth to plead, to bargain, to beg, but Maxis's hand was already closing around his neck, squeezing with the inevitability of a collapsing star. As his vision grayed out, a final thought flickered through Zaxxon's mind. This wasn't an anomaly. It was a warning. If humans ever found out what they had done here, they would come for them all. And the galaxy would tremble before the fury of the Berserker Code unleashed. In the aftermath of the slaughter, Sergeant Maxis stood amidst the ruins of the alien station, his armor slick with the blood of his tormentors. Around him, the other survivors gathered, a ragtag band of human warriors, each bearing the scars of their ordeal. They looked to him now, their eyes alight with a newfound purpose. "What do we do now, Sarge?" Private Reeves asked, her voice rough with exhaustion. Maxis turned his gaze to the stars, a cold smile spreading across his face. "Now," he said, "now we take the fight to them. We show them what happens when you awaken the fury of humanity." His words were met with a roar of approval, a battle cry that shook the very heavens. As one, the berserkers turned their faces to the void, ready to unleash the full might of the Berserker Code upon an unsuspecting galaxy. For they were humanity's ultimate warriors, and the universe would tremble before their wrath. In the days and weeks that followed, whispers began to spread through the galactic community. Rumors of a new power rising from the ashes of a shattered research station. A force that struck without warning and left only destruction in its wake. They called themselves the Berserkers, an army of human warriors, each one imbued with a primal fury that made them all but unstoppable. Under the leadership of Sergeant Maxis, they carved a bloody swath across the stars, striking at the heart of the alien empires that had once sought to enslave them. Worlds burned, civilizations crumbled, and entire species were driven to the brink of extinction. The berserkers were a plague, a force of nature that could not be reasoned with or controlled. And at the center of it all, Sergeant Maxis watched with grim satisfaction as the galaxy trembled before the might of the human race. For he knew the truth that the aliens had failed to grasp, that the Berserker Code was more than just a genetic quirk or a biological weapon. It was the key to humanity's ascension, the secret that would propel them to their rightful place as the dominant power in the universe. And as he led his army of unstoppable warriors into battle, Sergeant Maxis knew that nothing would stand in their way. For they were the berserkers, the ultimate expression of human fury, and the galaxy would never be the same again.